Good afternoon, everybody, from a cold and wet Israel. If you have seen where the Israeli summer or spring is, please kindly return it to us. If you listen very carefully, you can hear the sound of the storm outside. But anyway, enough of the weather. I'm Rolene Marks. This is the Israel Brief, where we bring you those top stories making headlines in Israel every Monday to Thursday. And it's brought to you by Lay of the Land, and you can find our written content on our website at www.layoftheland.online. Our YouTube channel is at the Israel Brief. Please click on that big red subscribe button. Our Facebook page is at Lottel Site. Join our growing community there by liking us or following us. And we're on Twitter at Lay of the Land 5. If you want to tweet at us all day long, we might even answer. But let's take a look at those top stories. And today marks a month since Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Now, we have been bringing you specifically the Israeli angle to this ongoing conflict. So let's take a look at what Israel has managed to achieve in a month, because for some very strange reason, there seems to be this fixation by the international media and even members of the Republican Party in the United States. I'm talking to you, Adam Kinzinger, about fixating on what Israel could be doing, should be doing. It's very strange that a country that is not engaged in this conflict is somehow being made to be responsible for what is going on. So let's take a look at what Israel has achieved. Israel has routinely condemned the Russian invasion. Ministers such as our health minister Nitzan Horowitz and our foreign minister Yair Lapid have condemned this. This is all while Israel straddles a very, very delicate line. We have to protect our security interests as well, because Russia has a military presence in Syria and controls the Syrian airspace. And this prevents Iran from encroaching ever further and further towards Israeli territory. Hardly a week goes by without Israel needing to strike targets or weapon smuggling convoys that go through Syria. And we can only do this in cooperation with Russia. This has allowed Israel, who has strong ties with both Ukraine and Russia, to maintain a position as mediator. And Israel's mediation expertise have been lauded by Ukrainian President Zelensky, who specifically asked Israel to be a mediator, saying that Jerusalem is the perfect venue to host talks. But Israel is very, very cautious how we go about this. Israel also co-sponsored the resolution at the United Nations General Assembly, which saw 141 countries condemn the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Coupled with this, we have also said that Israel will not be a safe haven for oligarchs, and have enacted our laws preventing them from using this place as a haven. Israel has also absorbed now well over 15,000 Ukrainian refugees. Only 8,000 of them are eligible for citizenship under the laws of return, which means that the vast majority are not Jewish and are being given a safe haven here until such time it is safe for them to return home. Israel has sent an extraordinary amount of humanitarian aid to Ukraine, including our field hospital, the Kochav Meir, the only one of its kind on the Ukrainian side of the border, as well as an untold amount of humanitarian aid. Our diplomats have helped evacuate people. Israel Aid is there, United Hatzalah is there, Zaka is there, and a whole host of other organizations, both Israeli and Jewish, from around the world. Israel cannot give military aid. I know many people are saying Israel should give their Iron Domes. Our Iron Domes will not stand up to the specific kind of military bombardment Russia is using. And also, Israel has to protect our citizens in case Iran uses its proxies to enact opportunistic attacks on the citizens of Israel. All this in account, Israel has been phenomenal for a country that is not a bordering country of Ukraine, not a member of NATO, and is really not directly engaged in this conflict. So I hope that puts any criticisms of Israel to rest. But we do have some updates. The Ukrainian ambassador to Israel roundly condemned the terror attack which claimed the lives of 4 Israelis in Beersheba just 2 days ago. Yesterday, Prime Minister Bennett spoke to Vladimir Putin, the Russian leader, and gave him his assessment on the situation in Ukraine, taking into account the opinions and reactions of the international committee, the international leadership. And Israel has firmly said that our involvement is to try and find practical solutions to help to deal with this conflict. We are not here to make suggestions. We are not here to force anybody to do anything. We are just here to look at practical ways to solve this. It is unclear whether or not Prime Minister Bennett has updated President Zelensky about his conversation with Russian leader Putin. Now we turn to something a lot more peaceful, and it has been announced by both the Emirati ambassador as well as the US ambassador that next week on Tuesday, the 29th of March, the UAE will be hosting a day of activities at the Expo 2020. Yes, I know the Expo it's not 2020, it's 2022, but it was meant to be held in 2020, so they're sticking with the date. So what will happen on that day? A soccer or football tournament will be played by 2 teams, one comprised of players from the Abrahamic countries. So it will be a combined team of Moroccans, Emiratis, Bahrainis and Israelis taking on the World Legends team made up of some of the world's most prolific players. Now, each country will get a chance to hold or host some kind of event, but I know for next week's football game, even though I know practically nothing about sports, I know which team I'll be supporting, and it's the Abrahamic Accords team. Now we turn to the Palestinian Authority, and an official has admitted that the European Union has frozen a significant amount of aid funding over failure by the Palestinian Authority to address anti-Semitism in its school textbooks. The official did confirm that $200 million worth of European aid is still frozen because, unfortunately, there is some kind of impasse. Now, an NGO that call themselves Impact, that monitors this kind of education and monitors what goes on in the Palestinian textbooks, has said that the Palestinian Authority have failed to make good on its promises to the EU that they would stop the education of incitement and hate towards Israel and Jews. And our final story of the day takes us back to sports, and this time it has been reported by the Hebrew media that Olympic gold medalist gymnast Linoy Ashram is going to be retiring at the tender age of 23. Apparently 23 is considered quite an age for a gymnast. And Linoy, who was Israel's first female to win an Olympic gold medal, announced that she would be retiring from the sport. Well, Linoy, we wish you everything of the best in whatever endeavors you choose to do. You brought such pride to this country, and you will remain in the history and the annals of this country as one of our greatest sportswomen in all time. And we thank you for that. Thank you for representing Israel so spectacularly well. So that brings us to the end of this week's edition of the Israel Brief. Don't forget, you can join me next week, Monday to Thursday, as I bring you those top stories. I want to wish you, on behalf of the team here and your families, everything of the best for a healthy and safe and peaceful weekend. Shabbat Shalom wherever you are. And don't forget, I'm Rolene Marks. This is the Israel Brief. Thank you for watching, and join us next week.